John Baxter's frightful discovery of an odd snake in his toilet was just the tip of the iceberg. Unbeknownst to him, a series of unpleasant surprises lay ahead. "What the heck is that?" John screamed, his voice reverberating off the tiled walls of his bathroom. His first instinct was to bolt, to get as far away from the creature as possible. But an inexplicable fascination held him in place. He was an ordinary man living an ordinary life in this sleepy town of Maplewood, and the ordinary didn't include finding strange-looking snakes in your toilet. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. As a retired English teacher at the local high school, the strangest thing he ever had to deal with was the perplexing interpretations his students had for classic literature. John Baxter woke early to the sweet chorus of songbirds that morning. He was a simple man with a penchant for birdwatching, a hobby that offered him solace in his golden years. Now, a retiree who had dedicated his life to shaping young minds as an English teacher, John had cultivated a calm life that hummed with the comfortable rhythm of familiarity and predictability. One thing, it was a quiet, peaceful life, one far removed from the sensational headlines of the daily news or the cinematic thrills of Hollywood blockbusters. That's why this day's unnerving encounter came as such a shock to him. And it was something he'd never imagined would happen to him in a million years. Maplewood was a friendly town, small enough for everyone to know each other, yet large enough to afford a sense of privacy. John was a solitary man, a widower with no children. His wife Martha had passed away a few years back. He missed her terribly, and in the silence of his house, he often found himself talking to her, as if she were still there, sitting in her favorite armchair by the fireplace, knitting away. The sun was just beginning to peep over the horizon, staining the sky with hues of peach and rose as he quietly sipped his steaming cup of coffee by the window, his binoculars at the ready. Navigating to his immaculate bathroom, a testament to the methodical order he cherished in his existence, John was taken aback. On the brink of reaching for the flush, his heartbeat skipped. What the heck is that? John was a man of restraint, never one to raise his voice or resort to expletives, but this was entirely unprecedented. An involuntary gasp escaped him as he stared, frozen, at his toilet. There, coiling and uncoiling in the water, was what he first believed to be a snake. But, wait, John mumbled. Contrary to what he had anticipated, his gaze fell upon an entity that seemed to defy the boundaries of his expectations. A surreal, strange-looking serpent in a place where he'd least expected to find it. As he backed away, his heart pulsating in his chest, doubts began to infiltrate his mind. One thing was clear: he was in over his head. John decided he needed expert help and reached for his phone. His fingers trembling as he dialed. As he put the phone down, he found himself thinking back to his morning's routine, and he realized that his peaceful existence was perhaps being ruffled for the first time in years. The expert, a seasoned wildlife rescuer, had assisted John more than once in removing errant raccoons or misplaced hedgehogs from his garden. Yet as John's gaze fixed on the strange entity residing in his toilet, he suspected that this situation was going to diverge dramatically from their usual interactions with wayward fauna. Something felt amiss about this snake, although he couldn't quite pinpoint what it was. Sam arrived without delay, steering a weather-beaten old pickup truck that stood out amongst the pristinely maintained vehicles of Maplewood. Alighting swiftly, he headed towards John's residence. "Okay, let's see this creature," he murmured, navigating familiarly towards the bathroom. John watched as Sam scrutinized the entity in the toilet, his brow creased in deep concentration. The sight of Sam's intensity amplified the throbbing pulse in John's chest. "There's something strange here," Sam finally muttered, his eyes not leaving the toilet bowl. While John wasn't privy to the details, he could tell that Sam was struggling with something. Sam finally said, looking him straight in the eyes, "I think this is beyond both of us. I need to make a call. I promised to explain everything, but I need you to trust me with that." He stepped outside, phone in hand, leaving John alone with his thoughts in a swirling maelstrom of questions. As Sam stepped outside to make his call, John retreated to his living room, the soft hum of his aging grandfather clock offering a strange sense of comfort. He found himself drawn to the window, watching as Sam engaged in what appeared to be a heated conversation, his hand gestures growing more animated with each passing minute. A knot of worry tightened in John's chest. Who was Sam speaking to? And what was so disturbing about his toilet snake? When Sam finally returned indoors, his face was tight. He's going to send someone over, someone who can help us understand what we're dealing with here. John blinked, taken aback. The government? What on earth had he stumbled upon? Yet he found himself nodding, acknowledging Sam's words. The peaceful predictability of his life seemed a distant memory, replaced by this day of unprecedented mystery. He thought back to the strange metallic entity in his bathroom, the root of all the chaos, and shivered. A sense of anticipation hung in the air, much like the anticipation before a thunderstorm. As the day wore on into a tense evening, the magnitude of the situation started to sink in. John was thrust from his comfortable existence into an adrenaline-charged enigma. Suddenly, a loud knock at the front door broke his train of thought. As Sam got up to answer it, John felt a pang of apprehension. He looked outside the window and saw a black sedan standing outside his house. The next few minutes felt like a blur. A woman entered his living room, her presence filling the room with a sense of urgency. She introduced herself as Agent Thompson, a name that seemed to hang in the air long after she had said it. As Agent Thompson examined the strange-looking snake in the bathroom, Sam and John exchanged apprehensive glances in the hallway. When she finally did, her face was unreadable. "Gentlemen, we're dealing with something very significant here," she started. Her eyes locked on John's. "I need apologies, but I need to take this call," she uttered, not waiting for John's acknowledgement before briskly walking away. She gripped her phone with an urgency that sent a jolt of apprehension through John's heart. Before he could fully comprehend the situation, a group of men in dark suits invaded his living space. John was taken aback by their sudden appearance, the fact that he hadn't heard them enter causing a shiver of discomfort to travel down his spine. The men, in their professional demeanor, dismissed John entirely, their focus solely on the bathroom where the object of intrigue lay. Their hushed conversations hung heavy in the air, punctuated by the occasional grave tone that confirmed John's suspicion a grave matter was indeed at hand. After a while, they came back and exchanged a series of quick glances and hushed words with Mrs. Thompson, their body language tense and alert. One of the men, a tall figure with a stern expression, turned towards John. "Mr. Baxter," he said, extending a gloved hand towards him, "I'm Agent Smith. We believe what you found is of great importance to us. Thank you for bringing it to our attention." As the words sank in, John felt a strange sense of validation. The creature in his toilet wasn't just a normal snake. It was something far more important than that. As the night swept over the quaint town of Maplewood, the calm tranquility that usually filled John's house was broken. A flurry of activity ensued, government officials swarming through his living room, their faces stern and their movements precise. They were armed with an array of machines, some recognizable, some utterly foreign. All had a shared characteristic: they bore the sleek, sharp look of advanced technology. They spoke in a language brimming with cryptic acronyms and military jargon that made John's head spin. Like a theme, their discussion evolved into a complex code language. He noticed two agents standing at a distance, whispering urgently. He caught fragments of their conversation, words such as "danger to the nation" and "immediate evacuation." John's heart skipped a beat, the implications of their conversation slowly dawning on him. As he was mustering the courage to flee, Agent Smith strode purposefully towards him. A stern look marked the agent's countenance, boding ill for John. "This is it." John resigned himself, the agent's intense gaze filling him with dread. "Mr. Baxter," Agent Smith began, his voice gravely serious, "we need you to come with us immediately." John blinked, the agent's words sinking in slowly. He needed to come with them? For what? And to where? Questions flooded his mind, yet he found himself incapable of voicing them. He recognized that resistance would be futile. His strength was no match for their youth and vigor, and the stern-faced agents, at least 6 in number, appeared impervious to refusal. And so there he sat, confined within the darkened interior of a black sedan, his destination a mystery. The car ride ended with the abrupt halt of the engine. Agent Smith parked the vehicle and, without uttering a word, excited. The remaining agents followed quickly. Suddenly, his car door was wrenched open. Out a stern voice demanded. As the door swings open, John finds himself standing before a sprawling structure. His gaze locks with a kindly-looking woman awaiting him, and a ripple of relief washes over him. Eventually, they reach a pristine office featuring a large oval table at its heart. The woman gestures for him to be seated, and he complies without hesitation. Shortly thereafter, one of the agents in his periphery reaches into his bag. The woman's eyes sparkled with a professional curiosity that mirrored John's own feelings. "Mr. Baxter," she began, her tone serious, "we've discovered something unusual." "Unusual?" John echoed, his heart racing in his chest. "Yes," the woman confirmed, nodding. "Your discovery is quite remarkable." John leaned forward, an uneasy mixture of anticipation and anxiety brewing inside him. "What is it?" Then he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman's gaze lingered momentarily on the document retrieved from the agent's bag before her attention refocused on John. "Before we can disclose anything, you'll need to sign this," she stated firmly, swiftly sliding the document and a pen across the table to him. John was baffled. His mind teemed with questions. What did she mean by this? It seemed he wouldn't unearth the truth unless he complied with her demand. "It's a non-disclosure agreement," the woman clarified, gesturing to the document. "It implies that whatever we share with you is classified. Here's you found more than just an unusual specimen of nature," she said, a cryptic smile playing on his lips. "You've stumbled upon something that's not meant to be in civilian hands." She started to explain that the object in John's toilet was not just a random occurrence. It was, in fact, a turd of colossal proportions that shouldn't have been there, and definitely not in a place as mundane as a bathroom. It was a thing of spectacle belonging to the world of legendary tales and unimaginable happenings. John found himself drawn into a whirlpool of explanations about digestive systems, mysterious food sources, and biological phenomena. By the time the woman finished her explanation, night had settled and the tranquil suburban life that John had always cherished was disrupted. He was overloaded with information and he felt his mind reeling. That's the reality of his situation had a dreamlike quality, as though at any moment he might wake up in his comfortable bed to discover it had all been a bizarre dream. But the somber expression on the woman's face and the tense set of Agent Smith's shoulders told him that this was very much a reality. The woman finally shifted her gaze away from John and signaled for the room to be cleared. The agents, who had swarmed his house merely hours prior, began packing up their equipment, vanishing into the night as swiftly as they had materialized. Agent Smith was tasked with escorting John home, and before he knew it, John found himself standing alone in the midst of his living room. He was a confused and shaken man in a quiet suburban house. Despite the overwhelming events of the day, the government had promised that they would handle everything from this point forward. John could do nothing more but trust their words. After a fitful night's sleep, John woke up to a quiet house. The only evidence of the previous day's chaotic events were the faint indentations in his lawn left by heavy vehicles. As he made his way through his daily routine, he couldn't help but weeks, and the incident began to fade in John's mind. His life returned to its usual rhythm, a rhythm defined by peace and simplicity. The only change he noticed was the new bird feeder that had mysteriously appeared in his yard. As he watched the birds from his kitchen window, he couldn't help but smile. The government officials had taken over, just as they had promised, and life returned to normal. But every now and then, when he saw a glint of something metallic or heard a quiet rustle in the bushes, he was reminded of the chaos that had briefly disrupted his tranquil retirement. Despite this, John found comfort in the familiar sight of the birds and their melodious songs, a reminder of the peace he had reclaimed.